Israel says it carried out limited Gaza ground raids. SBS News. Israel mounts limited Gaza ground raids, fears Palestinians running out of food and water. Israel said ground forces mounted limited raids to fight Palestinian gunmen and also attempted to gather information on the hostages being held by Hamas. Palestinians help a wounded man following Israeli airstrikes on Gaza City on Monday. Source: AAP. App: Abed Khalid. Israel bombarded Gaza with more airstrikes on Monday as its soldiers fought Hamas militants on the ground in raids within the besieged Palestinian enclave. In signs that the conflict was spreading, Israeli aircraft also struck southern Lebanon overnight and Israeli troops fought Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, residents said. The United Nations said desperate civilians were running out of food, water, and places to shelter from the unrelenting aerial pounding that has flattened swathes of Hamas-ruled Gaza. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a brief history. Why Ali fears for his family in Lebanon. Jewish community in Australia demands release of hostages taken by Hamas militants. Gaza authorities say at least 4,600 people have been killed in a 2-week Israeli bombardment. That was triggered by on Israeli communities by Hamas militants who killed 1,400 people and took more than 200 hostage. The significant escalation is the latest in a long-standing conflict between Hamas and Israel. Hamas is a Palestinian military and political group, gaining power in the Gaza Strip since winning legislative elections there in 2006. Both Israel and Hamas reported overnight clashes in Gaza. Israel on Monday said ground forces mounted limited raids to fight Palestinian gunmen and that airstrikes were being focused on sites where Hamas was assembling to attack any wider Israeli invasion. The raids also tried to gather information on the 222. He said. Hamas armed wing, the Izz el-Din al-Qassam brigades, said its fighters engaged with an Israeli force that infiltrated Gaza and they destroyed some Israeli military equipment. The group said the infiltration by what it described as an armored force took place east of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. Fighters engaged with the infiltrating force, destroying 2 bulldozers and a tank and forced the force to withdraw, before they returned safely to base, a statement said. There was no Israeli comment about the destruction of equipment. The Al-Qassam brigades also on Monday they were firing missiles on the South Israeli towns of Ashkelon and Mavkim. Warning sirens blared out on the Israeli side. Israeli troops and tanks are now. But how soon they might launch a ground invasion aimed at rooting out Hamas was not clear. Spreading violence. Fears that the Hamas-Israel war could mushroom into a wider Middle East conflict rose over the weekend with Washington warning of a significant risk to U.S. interests in the region and announcing a new deployment of advanced air defenses. Along Israel's northern border with Lebanon, the Iran-backed Hezbollah group has clashed with Israeli forces in support of Hamas in the deadliest escalation of frontier violence since an Israel-Hezbollah war in 2006. Hezbollah said on Monday one of its fighters was killed, without providing details. Israel's military said 7 soldiers have been killed on the Lebanese border since the latest conflict began. Hezbollah is formed in 1982 after Israeli forces invaded southern Lebanon that year. It is backed by Iran and leads a multi-party alliance that holds just under half the seats in Lebanon's parliament. In the West Bank, 2 Palestinians were killed at the Jalazon refugee camp near Ramallah, the Palestinian Health Ministry said. Residents told the Reuters news agency that Israeli forces raided the camp and made many arrests as they clashed with gunmen and some youths who threw stones. The Israeli army has not issued a statement about the incident. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh called for international unity to stop Israel's attacks in Gaza and allow aid. A second convoy of 14 aid trucks entered from Egypt into Gaza on Sunday night. The United Nations Humanitarian Office said the volume of aid entering so far was just 4% of the daily average before the hostilities and a fraction of what was needed. Share this with family and friends. Recommended for you. Ukraine is worried about the Hamas-Israel war, but Vladimir Putin may not benefit. World. Shameful act. Indigenous yes leaders break silence over voice referendum result. Indigenous. Food insecurity is absolutely everywhere in Australia. Most are feeling it for the first time. Life. Jobless, homeless and on the verge of losing it all. Until a Queensland community rallied behind them. Australia. Joe Biden arrives in Israel after Gaza hospital blast kills hundreds of Palestinians. World. Israel says it will intensify attacks on Gaza, where limited aid has finally entered. Middle East. Italian Prime Minister splits from partner after lewd TV comments saga. World. Aid trucks enter border crossing after Hamas releases 2 U.S. hostages. Here's what we know. Middle East. Topics. SBS World News. Explore SBS. SBS Home. SBS On Demand. News. Audio. Languages. What's on TV and radio guide. Food. Indigenous. Sport. Voices. Teaching resources. Languages. Arabic. Hu Tong Hua, Mandarin. Guangdong Hua, Cantonese. Tieng Viet, Vietnamese. Hangajeo, Korean. See all languages. Contact SBS. 1-800-500-727, toll free. Help Centre. Locked Bag 028, Crow's Nest, New South Wales 1585. Follow SBS. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Copyright. Terms and conditions. Privacy. Your online preferences. Sales and advertising. Complaints. SBS Code of Practice. Careers. About Us. SBS acknowledges the traditional custodians of country and their connections and continuous care for the skies, lands and waterways throughout Australia.